When I was a toddler, I was so stressed I nearly died, and nobody knew why. I came this close to just not breathing anymore. The doctor actually told my mom 30 minutes more and she would be dead. 30 minutes more getting to the hospital, that is. But did the doctors know what was wrong with me? No. Now, this happened when I was around 2 years old. Let me back up a little bit and give you a little bit more background information. But first, I'm going to tell you that the reason why the doctor told my mom that he didn't know what nearly killed me is because they're not taught the information that I'm going to tell you about in this video in medical school. This is something that I've dug in order to find. I'm glad I found it because it helped me a lot. I am now understanding something about my anxiety, my own anxiety, that I didn't know I could understand before. I didn't know I had this type of a source of anxiety in my life. So if you're an anxious adult and you're wondering why, if you also had issues with anxiety when you were a child and you don't know where it comes from, listen to this video all the way till the end, because you might end up understanding something that the vast majority of doctors are never taught in medical school, and that's why you probably don't know. You might have even been prescribed, like me, anxiety medication that didn't work. I don't know about you, but I got off meds and nothing improved with the meds. So this actually helped me. Let me explain. So I'm going to go back a little bit further in time when I was born. At my birth, my mother was not able to feed me. She would bottle feed me. I would throw it up. Then my dad would feed me the same milk, same bottle, and I would be fine. When my dad told me this for the first time when I was adult, he said, "I think it's your mom's anxiety." And I think he hit the nail on the head with that, actually. Fast forward a little bit, when I was about 2 years old, my mother told me that I had locked her out on the balcony. Now, my mother told me this as an adult, not as a child. But when I was an adult, she told me the story of how I locked her out on the balcony once. My mom was scared to death. Understandably, because I wouldn't open the door. I shut her out, locked the door, and she screamed a bloody murder to get the superintendent's attention. It took a while. She doesn't know how long, but I mean, scared as she was, minutes probably felt like hours. But still, it probably took a while because obviously the superintendent might not have been paying attention. Thank goodness it was summertime, and thank goodness a neighbor heard her scream, because that's how she got the superintendent to open up the door, unlock the balcony door, and let her back inside. Now, fast forward a little bit more. I was still 2 years old. My mom rushes me to the hospital. When she gets there, the doctor tells her, half an hour more and your daughter would have died. I nearly stopped breathing. I came this close to dying of what I now believe to be something along the lines of crib death. The doctor didn't know why I had nearly stopped breathing. He blamed it on some sort of weak lungs or something like that, but the more that I dig, the more it makes sense that it might have had something to do with my nervous system. As an adult, I was always very anxious. And as an adult, I didn't know where it came from. Although, up until very recently, I did understand that my mom might have been, overprotective, maybe a little too demanding, a little too controlling of what type of job I could do. I didn't understand that her anxiety could have had the type of impact that it had on me. I'm going to give you a little explanation of how our nervous system works by using my little chart here. This is hopefully not too hard to decipher. I put words on top of a person. Then there's a ladder in orange, that's a ladder. And there's the words ventrovagal, sympathetic, and dorsovagal with an arrow going up and an arrow going down in here. nervous system. So historically, well, if you go prehistorically even, our only defense mechanism that we had against predators was to play dead, which is in the dorsal vagal system, the dorsal vagal part, I should say, of our nervous system. Now, before I keep going, the dorsal vagal and the ventral vagal are two parts of the same portion of our nervous system, which is called the parasympathetic. And then there's the sympathetic, which is a part on its own, but both of these are part of the nervous central system. So, dorsal vagal is the only piece that we had for a while. The book that I'm reading that gives me that information does not include the years. So it just says that prehistorically, we started out with this. Eventually, we added another part of our system. Instead of just plain dead, which is shut down, we added also what a lot of people are already aware of, fight or flight, which is right over here in the sympathetic. And I would also add fawning in here. I believe that fawning, which means that you try to please everybody in order to make sure that there's no conflicts. If you ask me, that sounds like it goes in here too, although I would ask you guys to double check just to make sure. Don't take my word for it. This is something that I have not yet discovered, whether or not it really is part of the sympathetic, but it probably is. It doesn't sound like a freeze thing for me. I could be wrong. It could be freeze, although working towards making sure there's no conflict doesn't sound like something that would happen when you're in freeze mode. Freeze mode is normally when you really have no more energy, your brain doesn't work, you don't know what you're doing, or you are on some sort of functional freeze where you're kind of like on autopilot all the time, and you have to kick yourself in the butt to do what you need to do, and sometimes caffeine helps, that sort of thing. That's dorsal vagal. Sympathetic is when you just want to run or fight. Now, we feel the sympathetic nervous system even if we are not physically running or fighting. You know, we don't have to be in an argument with somebody. We don't have to literally leave the room. And here I'm pointing towards my door back here, which has a mirror on it, to get out of the situation. There are other ways that that can actually show up in a relationship, no matter what type of relationship. It doesn't have to be partnership or romantic or anything. It can be with friendships or at work or with your family or your friends. So, without going into details as to what these things are, I am going to keep on going. You can go ahead and study more about this on your own. I am also planning on doing more videos that could probably give you a better idea of these things. But because I'm not an expert yet, I can't go too deep into it. And I want to make sure that I'm not misleading anybody. And this is why I'm telling you guys. There's probably a few little things you might want to double check. But I am reading books. So you guys know that I am understanding this information from the experts, by the way. I'm getting this from the experts. I got some of the information from the Polyvagal Institute, by the way. Excellent institute. I recommend them. Check them out. If this is starting to resonate with you, even if I'm not finished, write down the name, Polyvagal Institute. So the ventral vagal, which is the last one that we built, is the one that actually probably made sure that the human species survives, okay? I'm going to add a little bit of information here about anthropology. I'm really geeking out right here. I am going to talk about stuff that has to do with how our communities got built because there were other species of humanoids on the planet that were way stronger than us. Here, we're not even just talking about wild animals. We're not just trying to talk about how do we get away from a bear that looks like it wants to attack us. This is actually even in the sense of like, we've got Denisovans and we've got Neanderthals that don't like us. What do? we build communities. Ventral vagal is considered our rest, sleep, eat and digest, and socialize state. So this is the state where we have what is considered a normal level of energy. Okay? And this is the last piece of our nervous system. So first piece of our nervous system, the dorsal vagal, which is freeze or shut down, and also low energy. You generally don't feel like doing anything at this point either. I've mentioned already, your brain doesn't think very well, and you might even end up when you're in functional freeze on autopilot. That's generally also, the autopilot is also generally low energy. Jim Quick, who is a neuroscientist, says that your brain uses 20% of your energy, even if it's not 20% of your body mass. So your brain uses a lot of energy. So if your body decides that it wants to conserve energy and is forcing you into shutdown, unfortunately, your brain doesn't get much. It's not a state that you want to stay in. For many reasons, one of them is lack of energy, but there's others. Sympathetic is high energy. It's the contrary. It's when we're probably on too much of a speedy energy high, full of adrenaline and cortisol, which is also damaging for your body. So you don't want to stay stuck in here either. Ventral vagal, like I said, is rest, digest, sleep, and socialize. Why? Now I'm going to get back to Neanderthals and Denisovans, because communities is how we survive as the species of humanoids on the planet that still exist today. Strong communities, the bonds that we have between people. This is why we survive, and this is hardwired into us. We need social connections. Now, back to the story of my mom. So, when I was a baby, being bottle fed by somebody who was way too anxious to be able to really pay attention to me, to give me undivided attention so that I can start regulating my emotions, wasn't there. Babies need that. That is actually how we build that survival mechanism that we had in order to build the communities to keep the enemies away. So we still have it built into us. As babies, it's also because we're helpless. We're 100% dependent on our parents. So our mind works with the idea that we have to connect with mom and dad in order to be able to be safe. Now, what happens if that connection isn't made? My mom was way too stressed out, so I got way too stressed out. I absorbed her stress, for one thing, and second, this connection wasn't being made. Now, when we are faced with stress, as humans now, the way that it works is that first, our brain is wired to do this part of defense mechanism, which is reaching out to others. We're still in a normal level of energy. Now, as babies, what do we do when we want to feel safe? Well, we generally get mommy and daddy's attention somehow. So this was often not taken care of. So what do? You see this arrow pointing down here? We start going down. So, sympathetic mode. When you can't move, you can't flee, you can't fight, what happens? Obviously, this defense mechanism doesn't work. I was an infant. I was 100% dependent on my parents still. Can't flee, can't fight. I couldn't voice my concerns to my parents. I was too young. Couldn't crawl away, not very far. Too young. I'm actually wondering if children who run away are actually in this zone. I would like to know if you guys have found information about that actually. Put it in the comments section. That would actually be interesting. I do wonder if children who run away from home have too much stress at home and are in this defense mechanism. just take off with the backpack and see ya. So because this didn't work for me, however, what happened? I went down into freeze mode. So when I was 2 years old and I was taken to the hospital and doctors didn't know what was happening with me, where was I? In here, my body was shutting down. That's why I nearly died. The doctor didn't know. I didn't get a formal evaluation about this, a formal diagnosis, because doctors don't know about this. So the doctor just went, she nearly died. Thank goodness you brought her to the hospital. She's alive now. Okay, bye. Take her home. That's it. Oh, did I spend 24 hours there? Maybe. I don't know. But, I was sent back home. And this is probably what happened. Very likely, I should say, what happened. Like I said, no diagnosis because doctors don't know about this. Now, another thing that helps me believe that this is the reason why I nearly died from this is because my cousin also actually died. Well, he died. He did not just get taken to the hospital. He actually died of crib death. And this sort of issue is normally intergenerational. This information I got from Dr. Gabor Mate, and it's very often passed from generation to generation. So the fact that my mother's sister lost her newborn baby, he was only, was it 5 or 8 months old? He was not 1 year old yet. I'm trying to remember, I think it was 8. Let's say 8 months old. He died of crib death. Same thing. When the doctors examined him, they said, no idea what happened. Don't know. We're starting to get more and more aware of this, and it would be good for universities to start teaching this to doctors. Now, here's the solution part. What do you do if you are going through anxiety and you're wondering if this might be what you are going through? Well, for one thing, when you are in dorsal vagal state, like I said, this is the shutdown mode where your brain is not really functioning. You're kind of on automatic pilot for most of your day. You are not in the mood to do anything. All you want to do is curl into bed and stay under the covers all day long. You are tired even when you wake up in the morning. If you want to get out of this, the way to do it is to start working on tools that are going to get you into sympathetic mode. Because if you want to get back here, this is what you need to do. You need to climb the ladder back up. Now, in order to start getting out of dorsal vagal mode, you need to reconnect in your body. I put a line right here. And that is because if you spend too much time in dorsal vagal and sympathetic, or just dorsal vagal alone, you're normally disconnected from your body, right? You end up not feeling your emotions anymore. You end up not actually understanding your needs anymore. So you need to reconnect with your body. How do you do that? I recommend you read information from the Polyvagal Institute. The book that I'm reading right now is a book written by Dr. Ariel Schwartz. Let me see if I can pull it out here. Give me a second. I'll be back. Just so you guys know, I'm not blaming my parents at all. I know that they did the best that they could with the tools that they had. Technically, this is just intergenerational problems that are hard to get rid of if you don't know how. So there's no blame in this. I understand where they're coming from, and I know that they did the best that they could with the tools that they had. I'm going to work on myself. And that is actually the best that we can all do. Just work on ourselves, no laying blame anywhere, and just taking responsibility for our lives as it is. Voila. Might as well show it to you. This is the book that I'm reading right now. I am eventually going to be studying this sort of coaching course. It's a course that is not done by the Polyvagal Institute, but it is based on the information from the polyvagal theory. I don't have it yet, so right now I am not able to give you all the information that you need in order to heal from this. So I recommend you get this book. I do, however, have some information that can help along the way, because this alone can only do so much. I have a free starter pack that I've put up on my Substack, and that can help you out. But first, I want to finish explaining this little guy. So, Polyvagal Workbook is going to help you climb the ladder back up. Now, just don't forget, this little line here is here for a reason. If you feel like if you've been disconnected from your body, which is something that you're going to learn about from reading books like that one, it also has another consequence on you. That also means that anything that uses the ventrovagal part of your system manifesting. Rapid transformations. Hypnosis. These things don't work if this little guy is still here. You have to get rid of this little guy first before any of these things work for you. And anyways, I don't recommend this to anybody, because generally healing is actually slow paced, especially for something like this. When you're trying to get back up the ladder and get back into ventrovagal state, it takes a while. I've tried manifesting. It failed, and I was frustrated. I admit that for the longest time, I thought manifesting was actually something that some people believed in without it actually working. And that's not a placebo. Before anybody thinks that that's called a placebo works, by the way. Okay? I was convinced that manifesting was just a false belief that people ended up clinging to, but that actually didn't work. But however, it does work. You see, manifesting and mindset changes, this is another one that I can hide here. The mindset changes are also something that I didn't think was real for the longest time, until I actually managed to start getting out of this. And then all of a sudden, mindset changes start to work. So here are the things that I'm going to recommend to you directly from my own experience. How did I get the energy and the capacity of actually being able to open up my mind to learn that sort of thing? It's because I started to do something that helps make your body think that it's safe, which is one of the things that you need. The polyvagal theory is going to explain that very well to you. Your body needs to feel safe before it can actually start going back up the ladder. So one of the things that helps your body feel safe, the foods you eat. Did you know that? Your body actually needs the proper nourishment in order to feel safe. It also needs to avoid things that cause inflammation. I have in my starter kit a lot of the best tips and tricks in order to make your body in safe mode. Now, you also need emotional safety, but that I'm not an expert in yet. And that's why I'm not going to talk to you too much about it yet. like I said, stay tuned because I am going to eventually, probably in a couple of years, be able to coach you on more of the stuff that has to do with polyvagal theory and maybe even EMDR or breath work and that sort of thing. I want to learn about that stuff. It'll come. For the meantime, in the meantime, there's that. There's your body. And the other thing that helped me enormously, if you had bad experiences in your childhood, kind of like mine, and you want to be able to start unraveling it, dream analysis is actually a good way of doing that. Now, before you do dream analysis, if you think that you might be one of the people who ends up going through dorsal and sympathetic and flip-flops between the two, you are going to need to read this book before you start doing dream analysis, just in case, okay? The worst thing that could happen is you start working on dreams that help you heal your trauma, but you re-traumatize yourself because you scare yourself along the way. I don't want that to happen. If you want to feel the emotions properly, know how to feel them in order to ensure your safety, okay? This is important. Get this book before you start doing dream analysis, please. But, or not necessarily that book, but something like this one. But dream analysis helped me a great deal because it helped me dig deep into what actually caused my anxiety before I knew about this. So it helped me get out of my problems here without me even understanding any of this. I won't be talking about the actual dreams here. However, like I said, my starter pack, I am like offering it to you for free on my Substack if you subscribe. I am putting the link in the description. Come and check it out. You can read the article that I wrote about my childhood experiences and subscribe to my Substack. So that way you can actually start slowly but surely, even if you don't understand how your nervous system works yet, because I gave you kind of a not so well explained, but somewhat well explained, but not probably sufficient explanation to really fully get what it's about. I really summarized it quite a lot. There's way more to understand here. But at least you get a basic, get my starter pack, and you'll get on your way to healing.